Hey, everybody, John Gum's going live a little bit here. Travis Lang, good buddy of mine, just going to do some talking tonight or this afternoon about maybe a little bit of wrestling, a little bit of life, a little bit of anything in general, which I enjoy doing. It's been a while since I've caught up with Travis, so we're just going to have a conversation and hopefully you guys enjoy. I'm all about, I'm one of these growth factor people where it's about growth in life and learning things and whoops, I got to do one thing here. Give me 1 second here. I've got also double checking. It's going on YouTube fine because I had them going on the background of my computer. So I had two things going here. But it's funny how things go, though. In life, you run a business. I run a business on the side. I want to talk a little bit about that tonight. I want to talk a little bit about family and friends and motivation. This is Dakota Grappler, so it is stuff about wrestling, but I'm also going to give you an opportunity to ask me some questions tonight too, and then we'll have an opportunity, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the talk. So, Travel, give me an update on your life. It's been 20 years since you graduated high school. Does that make any sense? 2004 grad, Bismarck High. Followed you my whole life in 20 years. It's just crazy that time has just flown by. I did the state tournament booklet a couple of weeks ago for the Throwback Thursday, and I had so many responses that your guys' class in 2004 was one of the best senior classes that I can remember. And just give us a little update in the last 20 years, what you've been up to.
Well, I mean, this year was big, right? Because I got inducted into the Hall of Fame this year.
Yep.
And then you reminded me, right? Because it'll be my 20th high school reunion this summer. I didn't go to my 10-year, but I'll probably go to the 20-year. This one might be fun. Gosh, what I've been up to lately. I mean, it's been, I think, 4 years now since I've stepped away from coaching. So the last 4 years, I've really doubled down in my mortgage and real estate business and focused on my daughter. My daughter is about to turn 7 now. So just put a lot of time and fun times into her. I picked up skiing. So I snow ski now, right? But I definitely miss coaching a little bit. Don't know if I'll get back into it. That the future is still out there. But I mean, I've been just really honing in on this last year or two a lot on self-improvement. And I went through a pretty tough year this last year. I did get a divorce, and not to make any part of this video doom and gloom, because it's not really. I look back now and I learned a lot from it, and I took it just kind of like a wrestler would, I would say, or at least I'm glad I did. And I took it as a learning experience, and I just went all in with, hiring therapists and coaches. And I've always been into self-improvement. I've always been into, motivation, as you have too. And I've always tried to improve myself every year. But this last year, I really put the foot on the gas, and I even hired an astrologist. I hired all kinds of gurus around me, and it's been probably one of the best years I've ever had in my life, which is crazy because I explain it now to people that I went through the worst and the best year of my life. I can't explain it any better. I look back and it's not like, oh, last year sucked. I say last year was something. Wow. And I've learned a lot, and I wouldn't change a thing, right? I wouldn't change a thing. And I'm very humble and glad to be the man I am today, and how I handled everything. And, now I have a whole different outlook on my career and how I'm going to help people. And it's been a crazy ride, but, I just think that the main thing to take from, if anybody's watching this and going through something, is nobody's ever got it figured out, right? Nobody's ever truly, if you think any wrestler or any coach or any financial guru out there just has their whole life figured out and they're just great every single day, and the way they look on social media, it's not true. It's just not. We're always going to be in process. And I think that's the key in life, is to know and to accept that you are going to always be in process. And as soon as I kind of changed my mentality of like the old school mindset of a wrestler of like, I got to grind, I got to be a champion, I got to win today, I got to get it, I got to crush it, I got to work 100 million hours today. Like that is not the way to live your life. It's just really not. It's going to burn you out. But to change your mindset and go, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to accomplish great things. Whether I'm going at level 5, 7, or 10, you can still finish the race. You just have to figure out which pace in the race that you should go based on the life you're living at the moment.
That's so true.
That's one of the best things that I grabbed from this last year. So what have I been up to? A lot.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, the fine-tuned focus, and having an end goal. I'm one of these people that, surprisingly enough, have so many goals that I have a hard time focusing on one in particular, because I find when I get on one, I stay on that, and I know I have these other ones and have a hard time getting back and remember, because sometimes I write stuff down and I could come back to it and go, oh my, what happened to this? What happened to that? But I'm one of the workaholics to it. It's a wrestling mindset. It's one of those where a lot of grit. I grew up with a dad that was one of these that, guess what? It's work hard, play hard. You deserve what you get in the end. If you can have all the talent in the world, but unless you can focus it, you're not going to do it. It comes with hard work and dedication, and that the simple steps of going one day to the next and having something you need to accomplish. And I'm proud that we have kind of the same roots. Grew up in the your parents, Napoleon, my parents, but it's that upbringing. I think wrestling did fine tune some of it, but guess what? Our parents have a big part to do with it. We're lucky to have the parents we've had. I know your parents very well, and good people. And that's it. Yes, definitely. And one of those things that they also got up every day, went to work, and you follow that. You hope your kids follow the same exposure that they gave us. So true. I've got so many great things. I remember you talking when we talked. Yes, I remember meeting your office about 8 years ago. Surprisingly enough, years before your daughter was born, and I thought about this a lot. And thinking about, I think you were just about, she wasn't quite born yet. And you were saying you wanted to be the best father possible and to focus this, if I could do my business, my fatherhood, and put it all on the line, that's going to be the most important, is to be that father. And that's one of the statements you said. That was, and that's so key. I mean, guess what? What's your heritage? What do you leave behind in reality? It's your kids. Everything else you do in life, your wrestling accomplishments, your business, that'll all go to the wayside. Someone else will do it.
That's right.
What you leave to the future is your kids. So true.
Yeah, no, that's so great. To my core, to my soul, I'm a father first. No matter what I do, if a lot of people ask me, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" or "What do you do?" or this or that, I always lead with, I'm a father. I'm a mortgage lender. I'm a real estate agent. I'm whatever we start talking about. And it's like, hey, you're right. At the end of the day, what matters the most is family and faith and taking care of the people around you, because you're right. You can, whatever you do for a living is great, as long as you're impacting lives. And that's why I think a lot of people, are struggling nowadays. You can just see it, right? And they're either kind of going in and out of jobs, or they're very unhappy in what they're doing. And I just think they're just like just a small little pivot off. I just think they're not real. They just need to kind of just have a pivot. And it's just, how are you going to impact people's lives? And if you know what you're doing is impacting people's lives, then dive into that. It's like a lot of people ask me like, geez, how'd you get into mortgage? Or, wow, got into banking. You must have got a finance degree. And I always get the comments of like, you must like numbers. Matter of fact, I do not like numbers. I did not like math. I did not get a finance major. I barely passed college, and I don't know how I even graduated college, right? But I do know this. I do know that once you sacrifice and once you put time into something, and you give up something, you start to get a passion for what you're doing. I didn't start to love mortgage or love helping people get into homes probably until year 4 or 5 into it. I wasn't gung-ho, I'm going to be a mortgage guy. Like, I did not like it right away. I didn't. But after I had to sacrifice and some things happen, I kind of remember sitting back one day, back when I was over working at a bank at this time, and I was like, I remember just sitting in my office and kind of looking up, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to quit now. After what I just went through this summer, are you serious? I'm going to get something out of this now. Right. And it's no different if you're a wrestler, because we're on the Dakota Grappler, and you're sitting here and you're thinking, gosh, I still got a portion of my career left, and you're kind of struggling and you got some goals to still hit. Get something out of it. Get yours. You still have time. But here's the beauty of it all. Having that intensity comes from once you sacrifice, once you give up a whole summer to cut weight and wrestle freestyle and travel to 7 different cities like I would every summer. I wasn't out playing with my friends every summer. I wasn't. I was wrestling 12 months out of the year. So by the time I got to a certain age, I stomped the mat because that was mine now. I earned that. And once you can understand that there's like a tipping point where I feel like even if you're not a wrestler, if you're just an athlete, once you've put in enough blood, sweat, and tears, you got a little edge to you. And you're like, you know what? I'm in this now. No way. You want to try to beat me? Let's go. Let's shake hands and see what you're made of. But if you haven't sacrificed, you're not going to have that edge. That's why I always know a lot of wrestlers, when practice is over, and there's some that stay after practice, those ones are going to be something special because they still want some more. But the last thing is, I'll say with a wrestler watching this is this. Don't put so much pressure on yourself today, because success is an accumulation of sacrifices and wins and losses until you get to a level where you're like, oh, I'm doing pretty good now. And the reason why that starts to happen is if you go the other way where you're, gosh, I got to win this weekend, or I gotta hurry up and lift weights, or you put, I remember I put a little bit too much pressure on myself. And if I could change one thing and leave like an 8th or 9th grader with a really good tip of advice, is that it's okay if you take a couple losses at the beginning of your career. It's okay if you're not a starter when you're an 8th grader. It's okay. Life is long. Your career is still long. You got a lot of matches to go. Don't worry. If you lose, you should be like, aha, all right, let's get the next one, baby. And you make improvements. When you put so much pressure and you make it hard on yourself, that's when a loss is so devastating, and you see a lot of guys not recover from it because they're putting too much pressure on themselves. It's great to be competitive and it's great to be intense and you want to win. But if you lose, so what? It's not Olympic finals and it's like your last match of your career. That one would kind of suck to lose. I'm not going to lie. You're the Olympic gold medal match and you could be the gold medalist and you're like 32 and it's your last match of your career and you lose it. Ooh, that might stick. But, if you're still young and you're out there, it's okay. It's okay to lose, because wins, losses, that's how you learn. Okay. Don't be afraid to lose. Be afraid to not work hard enough. That you can be afraid for that, for sure. You should work harder. But if you lose, who cares? Blow it off. Go to the next one. And I think that's the best advice any wrestler, any athlete should really put in their brain at a young age. Because you see a lot of these kids in college that kind of come out of nowhere. You just see they're just light. They're just having fun because they don't put the pressure on themselves because they were the 8 seed or the 10 seed or the 7 seed makes the finals. Why do you think? The D1s this year showed us one of the biggest lessons that I'm telling to you guys right now on this call. Look at all the upsets. It's because pressure is bad. Having a mindset of I'm just going to go and give it my all. And if I win or lose, great. I want to win, though, best believe. But if I don't, I'll get the next one. That's how you wrestle, period.
Well, I tell you what, it was like you were a fly in the Penn State room. You watch how loose their wrestlers are. Honest to God, you watch some of those guys, even the trials this last weekend, when you watched a couple of them, it's like, you know what? I'm building for a career here. But guess what? The pressure's not here. The pressure's on everybody else, and how they can convince people that it's so key because you watch it. It's a mindset where, and I'll apologize to you Iowa fans out there, which I am one of, even though I've got one of these shirts on today. Yeah, I wear a wrestling shirt almost every day, but I just thought about it. That's where you went first. But the pressure. Iowa put too much pressure on themselves the last 3 years to try to win one from Penn State. That you saw the accumulation of people just crushed every time that they had to win during the regular season, during every duel, and it was like, there's a mindset change that has to take place in that Iowa group. So true. Yep.
100%. 100%.
No. Well, okay, let's switch up. I like the wrestling stuff a little bit, but I want to ask you a question now. Some history, a little bit for you. Now, when you were thinking of going to college, now this is 20 years, and maybe we've talked about this, but you had a choice to go to a couple of D1 schools. How did you end up choosing Minnesota over other places? What was that final decision on that? Because you had J Rob,
Yeah.
and and at that time J Rob's an Iowa guy. You think of the intensity camps; he was all about that intensity, and you know maybe the fit, everything else. What brought you there to begin with?
But there's two big forces that pulled me there, and I'll have a few comments about it. The biggest reason was it was the closest D1 school to home, and I'm a big, North Dakota guy. I'm a big family guy, and I had a hard time detaching from being close to home. So I picked Minnesota off of that, and then I had some friends out there, and I also was pretty close to some of the team over at Augsburg. So it felt a little bit more familiar. And the big leap from little town North Dakota out to big city Minneapolis was because
people think Bismarck is big. It really isn't.
Yeah, it was closest to home, right? And that was the big reason why I went there. And then at the time, early 2000s, Minnesota was always top 5 right in there.
Oh yeah.
When I was there, I think we were second, third, and first or something like that. Out of the couple years I was there, we were like right in there. So it was one of the top 3, top 5 in the country. So I picked that too, right? And looking back, I don't regret anything I did, but I do know that I wish I would have as well ventured out and visited a few more different schools, because picking a good college is not about what's closest to home. That really shouldn't be your decision. Your decision should be, if you're an athlete, it should be about the culture, all about the culture. And then
which you don't know at 16, 17, 18 years old. You don't know it, and that's not taught to you. I wish I could teach my kids culture.
But see, 2002, 2003 versus 2024, there's way more information out there now. And
true.
These things, and with the power of social media and YouTube and these videos, and now with the knowledge out there where you can see how these programs have really changed the way that they handle their kids, parents and wrestlers should be asking, what's the culture like? You should ask that question. You should even ask the wrestlers on the team that question.
That's right.
But you're right. I didn't know that back then, but I'm telling you now, if you're 16, 17, 18, and you're thinking of what college to go to, ask those questions. And then 2, how are the coaches going to treat you in the summer? What's the summer lifestyle like? Because that should match up to your lifestyle as well. And then 3, it should be about the town and city you're living in should also match as well, in a sense. It can be like a little bit in the middle of the list. But let's say you really like the coaches, but where the college is located in the city that it's in or town is not going to be good for you outside of going to class and wrestling. That's a big factor. I'll tell you straight up. If you're not a big city person, but you just like the coaches, and then you jump into a big city atmosphere, the coaches can be great and all, but there's about half of your college life that's going to be outside of the wrestling room. So you got to really understand what you're getting yourself into. And I think a lot of kids might make a mistake and jump into a program because it's the cool program right now, or it's close to home, or we like the coach. Those aren't the best reasons. Those should be like number 5, 6, or 7. You should really pick in the top there. And then, 3rd or 4th should be, do they have the type of program you like? But I'll be honest, I didn't even ever care. Even graduating my senior year in college, I was still like, what am I going to be when I grow up? I just went to college to wrestle, man. That's all I went to college for. I didn't know what I was a month from graduating, and I still didn't even have a job. Still didn't even know what field I wanted to go into. So it's okay to not know what you're going to go to college for. But if you're picking it for a scholarship and for a sport, especially wrestling, culture should be number one.
Okay. Very good. And then you went to Augsburg for a little bit. And then tell me if you ever thought about wrestling international.
Because
I thought I had heard at one time that maybe I know the summers were a little bit tough. J-Rob kind of controlled his roost and put him in places and camps, and I thought that was the downfall to some of his wrestling, overall control. But I thought maybe that you'd have opportunity. You're one of the smaller guys. Those smaller weight classes is a huge desire. Right now, if you got a 25-pounder in the nation, you got a good shot of going somewhere and doing something. Because really, I tell you what, those middleweights are so stacked. Coaches are looking for 25s. Even BSC, you talk to Schumacher, one of his biggest guys he needs right now. He needs a 25-pounder. So somebody he can trust and someone that's willing to work. And one of the best coaches out there, I'll say that, Jeff Schumacher, going to BSC.
Absolutely.
Okay. A couple more wrestling questions, and let's talk more life stuff. Milo Trusty, what does he mean to you?
Almost everything in my wrestling career. I mean, without Milo, I wouldn't have been half the wrestler I am. I mean, Milo Trusty molded me in so many ways in my wrestling career. I mean, people don't realize that as an 8th grader, all the way through my senior year, I was at his house during the wrestling season every single Sunday.
Yep.
Right? So when I say I wrestled every day or I wrestled every month, I literally did. And 80-90% of that was with Milo. Whether it was me and him one-on-one or me and him watching tape from the matches the night before, I literally reviewed, listen to this. I literally reviewed every single match I wrestled after it because my mom would record it. And then we would go to Milo's house that Sunday, or sometimes we'd go Monday, depending on his schedule with his team. But so whatever matches we had that week, we'd record them, and then we'd go to Milo's house, drive out there on Sunday or Monday, and we'd watch every match I wrestled that week, and then we would go over technique, and he'd correct things on film as I did it wrong or right, and then we'd do some drilling. He'd lay the mat out in his garage floor, and we'd drill it right there. And the reason why I got so dang good at the bottom wrist, which was one of my signature turns on top, is probably because I did it on Milo 17,000 times. That's
Scott Glauser. Exact same thing Scotty Glauser did. Remember when Scotty turned the corner? Bottom wrist series. That Milo was so good at. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, two of the best to ever do it in North Dakota in the coaching world is Milo and Schumacher for sure. Those two guys are the biggest legends to ever come out of North Dakota and probably ever will. It would take a lot to ever top those two guys. So between those two and Scott Nolan, I mean, those three guys were everything to me. But, Milo Trusty is an absolute legend.
Yep, so true. How about character? Building of character. What would be the first steps as you're now being a father? How are you building character with your daughter?
Live time, day in and day out as it happens, right?
I love her smiles. She's always smiling. You get a little picture of her out skiing or whatever. She's got that cheesy Lang smile right there. It looks just like you. Yep, that's it.
Yeah. I'd say one of the biggest things that I've learned that's really working well is, I'm still trying to figure it out as a dad too. My daughter's 6, turning 7, so I don't have it all figured out. But one of the biggest things that's worked for me is when she either, does something like talks back or does something where I'm like, oh, probably shouldn't do that or whatever. I never overreact. I'm against yelling, raising your voice. I would never put my hands or hit my child ever. Some people might have an old school mentality of that. I think it's terrible, and I don't think we should be doing it. But what's really worked for me is after the fact, I always make sure we come back around and we talk about it. And people might be like, how can you talk to a little kid like that? You just do.
Easy.
You just do, right? And my mom really taught me that a couple of years ago. My mom's an angel. She's a saint. She's a guru with kids. She runs the ECLC in town for 44 years, 45 years, something like that. Sorry, Mom, if I messed it up. But she's just like, just talk to her like you would an adult. And as I started doing it when she was like 4 or 5, I was like, wow, and now she'll like say stuff to me where I don't even think some 30, 40-year-old adults could have conversations like that. And she's just like, well, Dad, you know how it makes me feel? I want to tell you. And I'm like, whoa, so like talking things through and letting her know, we talk about things. And the biggest thing to build character too is one of the best phrases I ever heard that I took in my dad's series, right? Is it's not about being a perfect parent. It's about how you clean up. So you can make a mistake. You can, say something. You're like, oh, shoot, or not, or forget something and be like, oh, I'm such a bad parent. Or, you'll make, have those voices in your head where I know we all do it, crappy dad or right. And it's like, it's not about what you do or trying to be perfect. It's about what you do about it after. So clean up really well, and I think there was once where I was, hanging out in the kitchen and Jazzy did something and I was like, Jazz, you can't do that. That's not okay. And then she got real sad. And then I thought about it and I'm like, you can't do that. That's not okay. I was like, oh, and it made her sad. I like hurt her feelings and, dealing with a girl versus a boy. And I was like, I probably could have worded that differently. And I thought about it for like 10, 20 minutes and she was fine like a few minutes later, but I was like, I got to clean up. I want to clean up and I want to show her something in this, all this. So I remember I went over to her and I was like, Jazzy. And she's like, what? And I was like, I realized the way I kind of said that was wrong. And I should have said it like this. Would that have helped? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh. And I was like, okay, I'll make sure I say it like that next time. But Daddy, sorry about that. And it wasn't like I needed to say sorry, but I felt the need to clean up in how I said it because I felt like that she could take later on when she might pick up on that and she might say something to one of her friends or might say it to me and she might kind of reciprocate it back and go, oh, I'm sorry. And it's just really kind of just being a good human and being empathetic of people's emotions,
Well, I tell you what, I have 2 boys that are finishing up college. Actually, one that's going to be finishing up here, and then I've got another one that's going into his 2nd year. And little things you learn along the way, and I can never say I'm a perfect parent. We all make mistakes.
Yes.
But just the little things about empathy, having your kids understand other people's feelings is so key. So key. My youngest is a master at it. I mean, he's like he could teach a master class where he started as a young kid. He just cared and he sees things that I don't. And I actually ask him these type of questions. Great example. He's probably 3 years old and we're sitting at a restaurant and he looks over and there's a couple that looks like they're dressed up really nice. We're at like in Ground Round or one of those places and she's dressed up really nice. And it must be like their anniversary. And he turns over to her and says, oh, I really love your scarf. And she looks at him and almost starts crying and pats him on the head a little bit and says, yeah, it's my anniversary, she says. And I got this special for my husband. And she gave him a little hug, but he's been that way all the time. All the aunts, everybody else, he knows the right way to affect someone else's feelings. He treats people very well, and it's going to do him great in the future. My oldest is a little colder, but he's one of these that will tell you exactly how it is, but always gives hugs. So it's kind of funny. And that's it. Yeah, and it's crazy as you start seeing your kids mature and hope that they have kids in the future. Hopefully you teach them little things like that. I don't even know the best way to say it, but guess what? You bring them up in a culture that you think's right, and we can't control the outside world. That's the one thing that I've really had to struggle with as a parent, that the external influences, as soon as college especially comes about, you can only do so much. They have to make their mistakes. But you're the guy there that hopefully you've grown a trust with them. They can come to you with that. And like you said, go back. Let's approach this again. And how can we do this better in the future? And hopefully they have that faith in coming back to you and saying that. Exactly. Let's clean this up. The way you said it. Yeah. So true.
And I think
So true.
as dads, I always cover this thing. I'm like, hey, what's daddy's number one job? And she goes, to protect me. And I have her say it back to me. And it, it's true. I think that the couple biggest things we can be as parents is we should be our kids' safe place. We should be a place where our kids can come to us. And we should also be the place to teach them about how healthy relationships should work. Because they pick up on whether people say, oh, they're just kids. No, kids from age 0 to like 10, right in that little pocket, they're going to pretty much be very, very molded already without you even knowing it, by watching you, picking up on the stuff that you do. And I think that's one of the biggest key things is parenting, and showing these things like character and culture and healthy relationships and empathy and family values and hard work and health and eating clean and doing these things. It all starts with you as the mom and the dad, right? Because the kids will pick up on whether you like it or not. They're going to take on tons of your behaviors and your habits and your mannerisms in the way that you handle other people. And that's what I think needs to be so brought out, is if you truly, truly love your kids, then focus on what you're doing and being an example for them to watch. One of the biggest things you can do, call it selfish or not, is taking care of yourself. Taking care of yourself, your kids will pick up on that, and then you'll be a healthy example of how they need to be.
So true.
That's what I think.
So true. I stay active for that reason. Not just for myself, and it's definitely a bonus. But I wanted my kids to see that. Guess what? You have to stay active. I got little weights in the basement. I've got I go play softball. I make sure I do certain things so that the kids can see that. Definitely. No, okay. Couple more things. Okay, now life in general. I was writing something down because I'm one of these people that doesn't sleep much, and maybe I got the bags on the eyes for it or whatever a little bit. But I think it's a gum straight. You get these big eye things underneath there. But it's one of these where, you start focusing on certain things. I think I've run to the end of the internet a couple of different times. But I find myself doing more and more reading. And I like the little stories where, there's struggle. And there's goals to be met, and there's grit, there's at the end, though, it's not always the brightest picture, but you see success building and building and building and influencing other people. I read a book not too long ago called Grit, and it's probably a book from about the 2015, 2016 range. And I thought of a couple of things about you when I was going through it, so I actually wrote something down a little bit. And I remember us talking, going back to your office about, like I said, I didn't even do this talk to you kind of a while ago, but having the growth mindset, it's one of those things where, you can believe in your abilities and you develop and have a dedication and hard work, but having this idea of getting bigger and better, I don't know if bigger is always that's the right word, but in the sense of bigger heart, bigger mind, bigger soul, and having that, important aspect to work toward. Because if you think you're as soon as you say you're done growing, then I think you stop growing. So, I always think there's something else to learn. I don't know. So where are you at with that kind of mindset?
I always think you're either going forward or you're going backwards. You're never staying the same, right? And when I was hearing you talk about grit, all I can keep thinking about is how important everybody in this world needs a mentor. Okay. And no matter how old you are, or you're in your career, or you're an athlete still, like we talked about Milo, he was one of my mentors. Schumacher, one of my mentors, right? Then in college, I had a few other mentors. And I'll just keep going down the line. Right now, I have a couple mentors in my business, right? Steve, Amos, Julia. Like, I think one of the biggest misses is people that struggle with like they hear grit or they hear grind or get passionate and they're not feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
I would bet to guess they don't got a mentor or two in their life. I think the number one key thing that's not talked about enough is how important it is to always have mentors in your life. And these mentors need to be people that have been through what you're trying to get to. They've already been through it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's so beautiful and what's so cool that I've really realized this last year in talking about this mindset, and thanks for asking this question, by the way, is that we're never too old to have a mentor, ever. And anything that you want to accomplish, hundreds and thousands of people have already accomplished it. Okay. So whether it's talking about like making it to the moon or becoming a president or becoming a national champion or making $1 million or growing a business, people have already done it and they're willing to share with you. But here's the tough part, right? Being able to go, well, who should I reach out to? Or do I have to pay for it? Or blah, 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 right? The best investment you will ever make in your entire life is yourself. But you can't do it yourself. So anybody out there that's trying to grind and figure it out yourself, I'll figure it out myself. Well, that is like going like this. Okay? Because all my life, the success I've had in my life, if I'm being 100% brutally honest with you, it's because I had mentors guiding me, coaching me, and grooming me and giving me the keys to the test the whole time. And I still am. I still have coaching calls every week. I still have counseling sessions every week. I still have certain personal one-on-one, just how is Travis doing calls. Okay. And I'm never going to stop. I spend thousands and thousands of dollars every single year on myself with coaching and therapy. I think there is something out there. Gosh, I want to, sorry if I messed this up, but it was, you can Google it, but I think LeBron James spends over $300,000-400,000 grand on coaches. And if you look at any incredible top inspirational person in our world, right? And you start researching them and we could just start mentioning a couple names. They've all had gurus, coaches, and they still get coaches. Some of our greats that are millionaires and billionaires, whether it's not about finances or money, or some of our top athletes, what do they usually say? Couldn't do it without my coaches. Wouldn't have been able to do it without, right? When you see all these, people give these speeches about how they accomplished something so huge and they start thanking and giving credit to all the people, there's something there. There's something there. It's all about having mentors in your life. And if you don't got them, start asking. Start finding people, start researching, and literally just use your phone, send texts, make calls, send emails, show up and find mentors, because I'll tell you right now, that will be probably one of the most influential thing you'll ever do is to dive into getting mentorship. And if you find somebody and try somebody out, let's say it's a coach or a mentor, or it's a, some type of guru or some type of side person you hire and it doesn't work, then move on. Find another one. Keep finding another one, because it's okay until it's kind of like dating, right? No, it's not going to work. Next, not going to work. Next, right? You got to find mentors in your life. And if you ain't got some, I just think, I know you need to have a mentor or two.
That, I tell you what's interesting is I know I've had people help me along the way. And it's huge. And I've never called them, I've always called them kind of equals, but what's interesting about it is, be able to give something back. I'm always one of these people that I have a hard time getting hold of and depending on somebody else without me giving them something. Having kind of that mutual respect back and forth. I've always kept my circle pretty tight. And that's probably what's kept me from really expanding some places in myself, because I've always thought the same thing you do. I've butted heads with who else? Myself, because I haven't had that direction, or maybe a mentor in a certain direction. I can figure this out on my own. I can figure. I don't, like I said, I've got lots of hours on my own. But guess what? When I do find a person that matches the same kind of intensity, same type of personality, same willing to talk, willing to listen and learn, they become kind of mentors. But I've never searched a mentor out like you have. That's something that I started to write down. You know, I'm never too old not to find somebody to match up and do better things in life. So finding those mentors, I think that's a great key.
And John, I want to say, you're kind of like talking about how like you like feel bad, like you don't want to like, not provide value or give them something. The best way to find a mentor is your first line. If you're like afraid to reach out because you like think they either like will say no or they might not respond, your lead in should be, I'm willing to pay you, or how much is it going to cost? Right.
Right.
As big coaches and big mentors and stuff like that, I'm not saying that, this kind of stuff should cost you tons and tons of money. But if you really look at how the world works, time is the most valuable thing you have, period, because you don't ever get it back. And once that time's done, it's done. The next day started. You didn't get tomorrow back. The most important thing we have right now is what? Today, right now, Wednesday, it's 5 o'clock. It's the most important time we have is the next few hours. Because once it's done, it's done. You don't get these hours back. So anybody that is super, super smart or influential, whether let's say it's a counselor, therapist, coach, like, do you think you could hire somebody like a Jordan Burroughs for free to fly into Bismarck and do a 2-hour session for free? No, you got to pay him. Everybody that it has been through incredible stuff, they got to take time out of their families, take time out of their day. If they have to travel, if they have to cut into their schedule where they're working, just be prepared to invest in yourself. That's all I can say.
So true. I would agree. What's interesting is, I'll bring this back to a business aspect. I've shorted myself so much when it comes to Dakota Grappler. I've given my stuff away for free, trying to make sure that people do that. And I've been told by many very smart people saying you should have a long time. And guess what? The investment back to Dakota Grappler will be somebody actually paying for it. Because guess what? That means a commitment back to wrestling that they're giving. And I haven't figured that out, in fact, but I do have, like, for an example, we have Indie Wrestle. They contacted me and wanted to join with me this year. And they have not, since we're waiting for the wrestling season to be done. And basically, we got this next week with freestyle. We have the state freestyle tournament in Jamestown on Saturday, people, if you want to go see that freestyle in Greco. But, I would be up for something like that because guess what? I think 2 minds is better than 1. But in my mind, I'm going, I've already done it myself. What do they have to offer me? But I've never been that way. I've been about giving. I've never asked for people to really give something back. And I got to thank Bill Holton. He's about the only one I know that gives more than me. He's phenomenal. He came on my podcast and we've done many things together. And probably one of the best friend mentor people I've gotten through wrestling is that man right there. But no, it's kind of one of those business things. So you've grown your business. You're on 30 states or so now. As you
36 or 37 states.
30, yeah. Okay. Now, when you were depending upon, growing your business, can you do that with other aspects in your life? Did you just focus on that itself, or what did you do to start expanding? Did you hiring people, all that stuff?
So what did I do to like grow my business, or what do you mean?
Yes. I'm talking your business completely here, where you're talking, employees, finding the right people to expand. What are you doing business wise with your mentality that way? To broaden your horizon.
It's a good question. I mean, my whole concept from many, many years ago has always been about, I've just always wanted to be the best at whatever I do, right? And I knew that once I got into home lending now, I want to be able to provide the best for my clients, and it's about their experience. And as I realized how nerve-wracking it is to buy a house and how scary it is and like who to go to, and do I go here first or what do I do? And I just realized as I got to a point in my career, the amount of people that were reaching out to me from different cities and states, because I would just, I traveled a lot and I would just meet people and I would just start to grab stories. And pretty soon I realized, wow, I can help people from all over the country now, and they have the same stories. And I realized in other big cities and other states, there was such a need for good lending and a lender like myself that actually gave a crap, right? And so I just realized, I'm like, why am I just focusing on Bismarck when there's people everywhere, and I care about the greater good of home lending and real estate and people in general? And because I started meeting so many people, and people be like, "Oh, would you do my loan?" And I would have to say, "Oh, shoot, I'm not licensed there." It just hit me, and I'm like, I got to start growing this thing. And then as I casted a bigger net, and I realized, it's no different than a wrestler being like, I won the Jamestown invite, but now I want to win state. And then you win state, and then you're like, oh, I want to go to nationals. So it's kind of like, I want to be a mortgage lender. I want to do some loans in Bismarck. Wait, I could help people in Minneapolis? That's cool, man. And then it just grew. It just morphed. And then with COVID and not being able to see people for a while, and realizing that I can now close loans all through paperless DocuSign technology in my phone, it just evolved, right? And then the inner motivator for me, on top of sacrificing and having a passion of what you do, and that's just really what I believe in. It doesn't really matter what you do for others. It matters that you stick with something and you find out a way that you can impact people's lives, and then you sacrifice, and then the passion comes later, right? It's not the calling first. The calling's later. It's after the fact. And then I was like, okay, well, why am I still doing this? And then I had my daughter, and then my daughter became my why. And then deeper than that was, I want to start helping out my parents. They did so much for me. So now I wake up to give back to my parents, give back to my daughter. And I have some things, like some things I want to surprise my parents with, and I'm not going to disclose on this video to give away the surprise, but I want to do something special for them. And I want to set up my daughter one day to where if something happens to me, she's taken care of, and she doesn't have to worry about what groceries cost. So that wakes me up. That wakes me up a lot. And if you don't have that, maybe you don't have kids yet, or maybe you're not sure, figure it out. You got time. Figure it out. Day at a time, week at a time, month at a time. And once you figure out why you're impacting people and then who you're doing it for, whoo, that's when magic starts happening. And when you see people that are just, they don't got those two things. And my heart goes out for them, because I don't want people living like that. I want people to be living alive. I want people to be making the most of tonight, 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. What are you doing? Hopefully you're not just sitting at home watching TV all night. That's not a way to live life. No, some TV is great. Like I'll watch YouTube with my daughter sometimes, or I might watch something, with a girlfriend of mine or something, but I'm not going to watch TV every day. I'm not, because I want to go out and live my life. I want experiences. I want connections. I want people. I want growth. I want life. And where did that all come from? Experience, man. Living and going through some stuff. I can't explain it any better.
Well, Trav, I tell you what, great conversation. Great conversation.
Thank you for all.
Well, I tell you what, sometimes it's good to just catch up with people. I said this to Bill. I feel so good when I do these things. I just contact people and coaches, and we have, so many things in common. And a lot of the coaches along the way, you want to make other people better. And, and that's why I went into teaching and coaching, because I can see an end picture, people getting better in the progress, everything else. And coaching's just the best thing ever. When it comes to that, you get to know people deep down. As long as you're genuine, they're genuine back. And I can never trade those experiences with some of the kids I've got to coach along the way. And I think you're probably the same. How you influence people does matter. Does matter. We're here such a short part of time. I used to have this belief. Now, maybe I'm going to extend this a couple seconds, but I used to have belief that I wanted people to remember me. And I don't know where that comes from. I was a little kid, you name it, seeing a person, let's say in the center of the mat, getting a hand raised. I wanted people to remember that, but not necessarily me, but just the experience of it. Like I made a T-shirt a while back, and it says, "You can never understand the true meaning of this feeling unless it happens to you." And that was the guy holding his hand up, getting his hand raised from behind him. People, that feeling of I've accomplished. This is me. This is mine. I own this. Like you stomping of the mat. But you know, maybe it's a downfall as a parenting and my parents were, but I always had this idea that I needed to be somebody. And I don't believe that for my kids. I don't believe that for anybody else. But for some reason, and if it's vanity, if it's something else, it's not. But it's something that I know I have to leave an impact somewhere. And I thought education is the best place to do it, and coaching. But I don't know. Maybe that's built into a lot of other people and don't know how to express it. But I just have this deep down feeling that God, there's a purpose for me here. There's a purpose,
Mhm.
and I need to fulfill it somehow. And I'm guiding myself trying to find it in an everyday process. I don't know.
Yeah, whether you're a teacher, a mortgage lender, a wrestling coach, a doctor, a therapist, you can impact people's lives just as powerfully. You just have to have a heart for people and just do good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
Do good.
very true. No,
Yeah. Thanks for the chat, man.
Oh yeah, you betcha. I appreciate everything you do. We'll visit again. I tell you what, I enjoyed the Olympic trials this last weekend. I spent
Same.
way too much time. What's crazy watching TV, but every time I had a chance, a little laundry, do this on my phone. Actually, I didn't get to watch one of the Brooks matches and I'm watching it on my phone. I'm visiting back and forth, and I'm going, "Oh no, what happened?" My son's watching it. I'm somewhere else. I'm talking to Makovsky and Bill Holton the whole time, and I guarantee their day was filled with it too. But man, we got some great Olympic wrestlers out there this year.
Those matches were amazing.
Men and women. Yep. And so we'll let you go. We had a whole hour about here. Appreciate it so much. Time is so valuable. Anytime, travel, we'll visit.
See you, buddy.
Later, bud. Take care.
Bye.
Hey, thanks everybody. John Gums, Dakota Grappler, is just going to end the stream here shortly. But man, I appreciate Travis. He does such a great job. Life is tough at times, and he's found a way to stomp on it. He owns this, and he's going to keep going. I knew he had a tough last year, but he's a guy that's going to persevere. And I tell you what, it's everybody. There's a purpose for you, and wrestling's just a good guide. It's that guide, life guide for you that you get up and you dust yourself off and you go after it again and again, take it down or not. Definitely. Well, you guys take care. John Gums, Dakota Grappler. Just thought I'd have a quick talk. If somebody wants to get on, I don't have any schedule. We're about done with wrestling. I know this weekend we got the state freestyle and Greco in Jamestown. You guys have an opportunity to go see that. Go see it. We got a bunch of young wrestlers from the state of North Dakota. And then we get into our summer months where we'll have some juniors and cadets and people getting ready, summer camps. Anybody that wants to get on Dakota Grappler, put your stuff on Facebook or you want it anywhere for Dakota Grappler Wrestling. Just get a hold of me and I'll help you out. Take care, guys. John Gums, Dakota Grappler.